What's the weirdest rule you had in your home growing up? Please like, subscribe and comment so I can create more videos for you. Salt was for guests only. The actual use of spices was very looked down on and seen as a huge insult to my mom and dad, even though they were absolutely horrid cooks. Wonder why their cooking was so shit. Can't possibly be lack of seasoning. No, obviously, it's your taste buds that are wrong. My dad made up a rule to stop my big brother from asking about getting a dog every 10 seconds. We had neighbors on both sides who had dogs, so the rule was that only every other house could have a dog. My brother believed it for a long time. I couldn't recline or lay my body down at all if my boyfriend was over. My mom thought that me laying down would give them thoughts, so I couldn't do it. Once I put my feet up on the couch while my fiance was over and my mom got pissed and thought I was trying to turn him on. I also changed into sweatpants from jeans once because I was going to watch a movie with my boyfriend and she thought I changed to give him better access. I was just uncomfortable in jeans. Also, no Sailor Moon, Avatar, Fairly Odd Parents, Harry Potter, anything with magic or witchcraft. Also never celebrated Halloween and never trick-or-treated. Wow, you were robbed. Fairly Odd Parents was the shit back in the day, and Avatar is still the shit today. Great story, they really did a great job making that show lol. Also, I'm sorry your mom thought you were some sex deviant. My grandmother said not to shit during a lightning storm because a bolt of lightning might strike the pipe and electrocute me. I wasn't allowed to put sugar in my tea because my mum told me that when you go to prison they don't let you have sugar, so it will makes prison that much harder. 1. Thanks for having so much faith in me, mum. 2. I'm pretty sure you are allowed sugar for your tea in prison. Maybe they misunderstood the saying that you should prepare your children for life. My dad had diverticulosis, pockets in the intestine, and couldn't eat sesame seeds, among other things. When we would eat fast food sandwiches, everyone had to give their bottom buns to dad, in exchange for his top buns. So all my life I grew up eating burgers with top, seeded buns. This was never explained, and it was from before I born, so it was literally when I was in college that I realized that it wasn't normal. I thought it was just dad privilege TM to have 2 bottom buns. The top is better than the bottom bun anyway, love me some sesame seeds. At my friend's house they had a no pizza balling rule. There were 3 teenage brothers and when they ordered pizzas, at least a couple larges, tempers flared quickly when people would try to grab as many slices as they could. The first rule in place was that you couldn't have more than 1 slice at a time, and you could grab another once you had the last bite in your mouth. But one of the brothers quickly figured it out that if you ball up a slice he could fit it in his mouth and grab another one. Hence, no pizza balling. Edit 1. Spelling in stuff. Edit 2. To be clear, I'm not endorsing this as a good idea, it's just a thing I saw happen. When the pizza box was about to hit the table, the only thing the mom said was remember, no pizza balling. Which was so confusing for me, for about 5 seconds. My mom went through waves on not really giving a fuck to trying to make new rules routines so she felt like she was a good parent. I remember one time she bought me, middle schooler at the time, some big boring book and told me I had a week to read it and write her a book report, and that we'd be doing that every week from now on. A day later she had forgotten about it, of course. A constant rule in our house was that we weren't allowed to really eat anything unless it was offered to us. I got grounded more times than I can count for making myself after school snacks. She was really weird about food, but she was also morbidly obese, so that could explain some things. My dad allowed me to have a bed, 5 outfits, hygiene products, and a Bible. That's it. His wife would make my sister and I sit on towels on the couch because we smelled like shit. When I turned 16, I was not allowed to leave my room for any reason whatsoever between the hours of 11 p.m., 8 a.m. I had my own bathroom and was given a mini fridge for snacks if I got hungry or was up late in the summer. I found out later that this was because my mom would get on dating sites and invite random men to the house for coitus and didn't. Want me stealing the spotlight and taking away her shot at love? Edit to answer some questions. I don't think she was doing this for money, because we were always broke as shit. If she did get compensation, it was probably very small amounts, or non-monetary. I didn't mind too much because we fought a lot and I tended to keep my distance from her anyways. It was just weird that she'd specifically lock me in during that time. She was in therapy. She was on meds. The problem was that they would stop working or she'd start abusing them after so long and then it'd start another spiral or crazy shit. This was one of the most tame behaviors of hers. She never really got better, just worse. This all came to a head a few years ago when she basically ran away from home. We got a call about 2 months later that they had found her laying prone on the ground with no response, with some injuries that were consistent to a small gang in the city she was living in at the time. Best we can tell, she got into some trouble with them and they killed her or had her killed. I didn't have a great relationship with my mom, but yes, I still loved her. If you come home at night and the door's locked, even if I have a key, find somewhere else to sleep. My parents pulled this one on me exactly once. I was just over 18 and still at home, and had gotten permission, still needed, to be out late with my then BF. Nothing bad, just at a get together with friends. My dad called me at like 10 minutes to midnight asking why the fuck wasn't I home and how can I disrespect them like this, and if I wasn't home by 12 then don't bother coming home until the morning. I was, like 30 minutes away, so after panicking a little about the situation I said fuck it and stayed out all night. Came back in the morning and mom and dad were like, oh well I guess you're hot shit now aren't you? So I was like well you said don't bother coming home, so I didn't. Mom tried to pull the a good daughter would have come home and slept on the porch. PFFFD no, it was cold. I didn't have my own car to sleep in at that point. Not freezing on the porch all night when I have options to be warm and safe just because you wanna have a hissy fit over something you misunderstood. I can't remember what I did wrong, but my dad came up with around 20 pages of rules I had to follow as a punishment. The weirdest was that I could no longer eat ice cream sandwiches. I could only buy things if I was buying them for a birthday or Christmas gift for somebody else. Mind you, this was my own money I earned from my job. My mom knew how long it took to get home from school, so if I stopped at the store, she knew and I'd be in trouble. I knew this pair of sisters who had to give all their earned money to their mom. This continued even after they both moved out. They were allowed to pay their bills, but then all the rest of the money went to mom. It fucking baffled me that they continued when they didn't even live with her anymore. And it's not like they were poor and needed to save. My stepmom would send strongly worded emails to my mom regarding my overconsumption of yogurt at their house. And once again, Brenda, your child has taken another one of my key lime pie plates. She has her own, and I can't understand how you haven't explained to her that the yogurt is not communal. Bedtime was 7 p.m. until I was in my teens. I didn't realize other kids had much later bedtime until I was a teenager. I think it was mostly because my mum's favorite soapy comes on at 7 p.m. We were noisy kids. I had the same when I was at my dad's stepmother's place. My stepmother didn't like me so just wanted me out of sight as early as possible. My parents acted like referring to them as he or she while they were in the room was the equivalent of saying fuck you. So referring to my parents with pronouns was effectively not allowed. We were not allowed to use the front door. Ever. There was a metal screen on it with a deadbolt that needed a key for either side. My stepdad kept the key and even visitors had to go to the back through the side gate. Edit. My stepdad told us only cops use the front door. Anyone who came to the front was automatically suspect to him. We were to never answer the door to strangers for this reason. All of our friends' visitors were to go through the back. With rural family the front door is only used on formal occasions, holy holidays, where distant family comes. Otherwise everyone comes in the side or back porch. It wasn't a rule, but the door would either be locked and deadbolt, or you get treated weird for using it. Wasn't me but my neighbor. When my dad would come home from work my friend would have to go home. His parents told him that because that meant it was dinner time and therefore he should come home. Him being a child, didn't grasp that portion of the rule. He only understood come home when my dad gets home. This translated in my friend being terrified of my father. If he saw my dad turning into the driveway, he would drop whatever we were doing and sprint home. If my dad would make it home and get out of the car, he would cry and run home. Somehow in his head, my father was bad. It took some time before my friend was comfortable around my father. Don't lock the bathroom door. Dart. Why not? Because you don't need to. Dart. Lady, I need my privacy. My grandpa's reasoning for this was if I ever passed out or slipped, he would rather not, or maybe just couldn't, break down the door to get to me. Weirdly enough, I did randomly pass out in the bathroom once. Luckily, the door was wide open that time. My father woke up at anywhere between 10 and 12 every day. Immediately upon waking, he would stumble to the bathroom, where he would spend 45 to 75 minutes coughing mucus out of his lungs and spitting it into the sink. He had advanced emphysema because of his decades-long smoking habit. During this time, no one was to talk to him, look at him, or interact with him in any way beyond bringing him shitty instant coffee. I learned this lesson the hard way the first week after my mother married him, because I had to pee. So I opened the door and was immediately confronted with a 38-year-old 400-pound man in nothing but his underwear, red-faced and screaming at me to get the fuck out of the bathroom. Edit, speech to text. Holy shit, that sounds too familiar. Right down to 400-pound man. That's my father. Fuck me. I don't recall 75-minute cough sessions, but when he got up, which was late, he went right to the bathroom and you had better not be using it or the shit would hit the fan. My father wasn't a bad man, but fuck me, he had a bad temper. I don't think people at other houses spent their youth scurrying out of the bathroom from a 350-400-pound naked dude bounding down the hall. I remember he'd do this impatient little bounce while admonishing you for how much time you were taking. We couldn't say the word fart, ever. It was up there with fuck and shit as far as bad words. Edit, this broke my notifications on bacon, reader, send help. We couldn't eat supper until dad got home from work, even if it was 9 p.m. Oh, me too. Typically between 10 p.m. to midnight, we did dinner, even when I was in grade school. I was, and am, also a huge night owl, so mostly I was fine with it. I do remember being woken up to come have dinner many times, though. We were only allowed one towel a week. We could do whatever we wanted with it, but we didn't get another until next week. We weren't allowed to say I am the best or I am the greatest. My dad grew up in a competitive household. I went to private Christian school and some kids told me they got in trouble at home if they said something was awesome. Only God is awesome, they'd be told. I wasn't allowed to wear my hat backwards. My dad thought that it was a gang thing. Mind you, this was in rural Wisconsin in the 90s. My parents are wonderful people, just may not have had the best understanding of the world at that time. My grandpa would always wear hats, and while he is sleeping I put it on him backwards and he doesn't notice until someone tells him. I was never allowed to leave a drink in the car because, according to my mother, someone could poison it. She's always been overly paranoid about safety, but that one is my favorite. My dad has a thing about drink safety too. His thing was that if you opened a soda can, and then lost eye contact with it, even briefly, you shouldn't drink from it again because a bee could have gotten in it. I mean, technically a possibility, but probably not a common enough issue to have been discussed as much as it was. Edit, okay guys, dad was right, as usual, but I'm never telling him these stories. He doesn't need that much confirmation of his genius. Maybe the oil field story, both because my dad used to work in the oil field himself and because that story is pretty metal. The only movies we could watch on Sunday were 1. Bambi and 2. The Sound of Music. Edit, just answering some recurring questions. Yes, I was raised Mormon. We weren't allowed to watch religious movies that weren't LDS. We were allowed to watch a LDS film called The Other Side of Heaven, but the disc was scratched. After school treat was the only time we could have cookies. Only 3. Not too weird, but it had a significant impact. I'm 50 now and will still have exactly 3 cookies when I have cookies. I, too, was a 3 cookies kid. Edit, though I am no longer. I specifically take 4 while flipping the bird in my mother's general direction. She's hundreds of miles away. I wasn't allowed to put any personal touches in my room. No posters, paint colors, pictures of my friends, or any sort of choices, not even my comforter. It was all decorated to my mother's specifications. I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons. Most other stuff they didn't care about thought. It did not make sense. In similar fashion, I was not allowed to watch Power Rangers after a news report of a child being killed while playing pretend. Yet, my father loved Voltron and G-Force. Couldn't watch SpongeBob while my parents were around because they thought it'd make me gay. I wasn't allowed to use tampons. Edit, wow, guess I'm not the only one. What messed up reasoning. My mom had the same reasoning. I stole 2 from her bathroom. She noticed, of course. I got grounded for a month and she threw out everything in my bedroom. You know, because I was a mean slut who steals. I was the only girl with a handful of brothers. I was given really weird rules. First time I got my period I got in trouble for interrupting shopping and was made to walk around leaking in the mall. It's been 20 years and I'm still embarrassed. We weren't allowed to say we were bored. We had a board jar, 50 pence a slip up. I'd get told, there's no such thing as being bored. You're just being boring. Every single time. Sounds like Indonesia. My grandmother was brought up the same way. Then her father died and my great-grandmother didn't know how to handle the finances, or do anything, really. Kept all of the stuff and the money ran out quick. For some reason I couldn't say crap, but it was okay to say shit and ass. This was around the time I was 11/12. I'm gonna go take a CR, I'm going to force shit out of my ass. No touching the pets. We had a sweet little Bichon Larsamix that would beg for cuddles in the best tuxedo cat ever. Fuck you mom and dad, you psychotic fucks. I cuddle the shit out those critters every time you weren't around. We had the same rule. My parents kept some pets. But only outside. Never walked, never petted, never trained, never groomed. Kept in a tiny concrete yard. Fed once a day dry kibble. They would shout at the dogs for barking. They would shout when the animals wouldn't do what they wanted. They would just shout at the animals in general. I would often sneak outside and play with the dogs, Rottweiler and Staffordshire Bull Terrier. I would give them bacon scraps, pet them, groom them, do some basic training and just chill with them. We also kept rabbits at one point too, but same rules applied. They basically sat in a hutch day in day out, fed once a day and barely cleaned out. I would go out and feed them, dandelions, and check them over, pet them, allow them a few minutes to stretch out and run around. Dogs would be out of the way. If I was caught I got shouted at and beaten, sent to my room which looked down on the yard with the dogs. The rabbits mysteriously disappeared one day. I asked about it and was told they ran away. I suspect they died of poor health or the dogs got to them. But my parents were so unconcerned about it. I hate my parents and wish we never kept animals just to save those ones we did have from suffering. As for me now, I adore every animal I see. I am obsessed with animals. I own 2 cats who snuggle with me and get lots of treats. They have cat trees in every room I spend a lot of time in. Regularly go to the vets if needed. My friends that have dogs let me take the dogs out and have cuddles with them. I dog sit now and then for a few others. I make friends with nearly every dog I see. I stay clear when they show signs of aggression. I would like to keep some more animals if I had a space, but for now I have my 2 cats. For a while my mom had us go to public school in the city she worked in and used my stepdad's business address. She was so scared about being caught that we weren't allowed to have friends. This lasted for 6 years. We had silverware with roses on it. Our thumbs had to be on the rose when we used the utensils, or we'd have to practice after dinner. Utensils couldn't make any noise against your teeth, or you'd have to practice after dinner. My house was a real ball of laughs growing up. My siblings and I were told whistling at night would wake up the devil. My mom's shitty boyfriend moved us into his mobile home, and suddenly I wasn't allowed to have a bed. It might break through the floor. Or a swing set or any of my toys. I was not allowed to watch TV if the boyfriend was home. I wound up begging my mom to buy me some horse magazine and coloring books, and made my own paper doll style toys, ponies and Lion King for doways. The boyfriend also offered to buy me a horse if I behaved. So of course I was a model child, but mysteriously, that horse never appeared. I was so much better off when they broke up and mom found a 2-bedroom apartment. I got a real bed and a kitten. Mom told me recently that he died and was shocked when I gave 0 fucks and made a callous statement about it. Yeah, that was pretty abusive from your mom towards you, tbh. You weren't allowed to have a bed. All for that shitty boyfriend of hers. A good mother values her children over anything else, or at least enough to provide them with a loving and caring environment to grow up. Sorry you had that happen to you. Totally understand your reaction. You don't use save on the computer, you always use save as, because if you don't you could delete everyone's information on the computer. Sounds like PTSD from a bug in whatever software did that to them once. That if someone knocked on the door, we were not allowed to move or speak until mom decided that yes, we were home and would accept company. Didn't realize how weird that was until my friend came over and seemed surprised when someone knocked on the door, and I covered her mouth and pulled her away from the curtains. My mom refuses to answer the door for unannounced visitors, and to this day will still pretend no one is home if she doesn't feel like socializing. It's even worse when they call her cell phone and hear it ringing from within the home despite every television being on mute and every light in the house being turned off. Edit. To answer some questions, my mother has severe bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, so that had a lot to do with this. Also, I never knew so many people did this. Maybe my friend was the weird one, haha. OMG, my mother used to do this too. If it was night we also had to turn off the TV in case the unwelcome visitor see the light from it through the window. If the dare officer at school shows you something and it smells familiar, say nothing. I will explain it later. Also, if mom's room smells like incense, it is the best time to ask for something. Fight to the cry. I lived in a house with my grandparents and my grandfather didn't like to hear whiny kids. So if any of us were being a constant annoyance, he hit me. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. He would just tell us. Fight to the cry. Duke it out. First one to cry lost the argument. My parents are awesome, but I have some weird cousins. When I was younger my parents went on a short anniversary trip, leaving me and siblings with my older cousin to watch us. She is the same age as my parents. I remember one morning turning on Magic School Bus, and she frantically grabs the remote from me and turns it off. She then proceeds to go on a lecture on how witchcraft is a sin, and made by Satan himself, and that Magic School Bus is one of those sinful abominations. I couldn't fucking believe it. Turns out her kid wasn't allowed to watch anything like that. Harry Potter, Magic School Bus, Wizards of Waverly Place, some of them many things that apparently are just a gateway to joining a satanic cult. Her sister held the same beliefs. Parents divorced. Dad's house we were told to shower when we visited and put our mom's house clothing in a box under the bed after it was cleaned because mom's house was infected. It's called the mom's house box. Later found out my stepmom was paranoid because my dad cheated on my mom and she thought my mom would take revenge somehow. It got crazier than that. My stepmom made us write in journals, told us to write whatever we wanted. So we did. After 3 years she read it out loud at the dinner table and then punished us for what we wrote. Later she locked me in my room, called the cops, said I was trying to murder her, got told to be appreciative of my rich family by a cop. Once I went to school I told them what happened and stepmom got told she wasn't allowed to be on the school property anymore. Dad and her had to move to a different area. crazy step. Mom stories here too. Dad's fourth wife would lock me out of the house as soon as he left for work. I wasn't allowed back in until right before he got home. I was 6 or so years old. Found out later that she was a massage therapist and she didn't want me around when her clients came. Dad's fifth wife was worse. I wasn't allowed to eat with the family. Had to sit at the dining room table alone while they ate in front of the TV. I had to do laundry daily, but rather than just waiting until the dryer was done, I had to stand in front of it and check every 5-10 minutes and remove things as they were dry enough. Also had to iron everything, even Dad's underwear and socks. I wasn't allowed to sleep with a blanket. I had to fold the comforter at the foot of the bed and use only a sheet. That's just scratching the surface of her craziness. No cotton candy or fruit snacks ever. And yet I still wound up with terrible teeth. If I didn't clean my room, I couldn't do my homework. Yes, I know that's not normal for many reasons. We could watch Freddy movies but not Jason movies. BC My mom thought Friday the 13th was satanic but Nightmare on Elm Street movies were just for fun. I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons growing up because Bart was disrespectful to his parents. However, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street were totally fine. Is he from Central America? Sand fleas, or jiggers are a very real nightmare thing that burrow into your skin and swell up to the size of peas. Don't look them up if you want to sleep. Both the boys and the girls in my family had to have long hair. I snuck away and had it cut at 14 and my mom cried for weeks. My adopted grandma, aka my mom's best elderly friend from community aqua aerobics, would watch my brother and I when my parents were away. Her one household rule was the time you woke her up in the mornings was the equivalent to your bedtime in the PM. So let grandma sleep till 10, you could stay up till 10. Wake her up at 5, you're in bed by 5. If you worked the system well, this was fantastic. You can play San Andreas but only on mute. You can kill all the prostitutes who want, but we don't tolerate foul language in this house. Wasn't allowed to watch anything with a black person in a prominent role. My dad was super racist, so I missed out on everything from That's So Raven to Fresh Prince. Even Nora got a hard pass. My friend wasn't allowed to watch The Cosby Show. BC his racist mom thought the Cosbys were too uppity. Something like Sanford and Son was a-okay though. I couldn't turn the TV channel. Even if my father was napping on a Sunday, I couldn't change the channel. I guess I can't complain. I went outside a lot with nothing to watch. I wasn't allowed to drink the milk left over after eating cereal. Never really got an explanation, but my dad would yell if I tried. Edit. Wow, never thought my weird childhood rule would get this much attention. Couple of things. I once asked and all I got was it's gross as an answer. We were not a prim and proper type family. No, I am not lactose intolerant. And, unfortunately, my dad suddenly passed away a few years back, so I can't ask him for an explanation now that I'm an adult. I guess the world will never truly know. Went to drink the milk from the bowl like a normal person. Father got pissed, said I was being inappropriate. Tried to just pour it out and he got even more pissed. Told me I was supposed to drink it with a spoon and that I had to sit there until I had finished it. 15 minutes later, doing what I had been told was still trying to finish. He gets pissed it's taking so long. Everyone in the house was like WTF. Next day his girlfriend goes out and buys bowls with straws built in to avoid the whole mess. I don't know how he is so good at manipulating people, but so stupid to basic physics and human decency. My cousin was raised the same way and we recently talked about this from a meme I sent him. On a scale of 1, punished for watching Harry Potter, how religious were you raised? And I had to click your page and make sure you weren't him, lol. We were not allowed to ask for anything specific for birthday or Christmas. If any of us did, no one got a present. I've now been married for 39 years and still can't bring myself to answer the what do you want for, enter occasion here, question. Man oh man, just reading through some of these responses makes me even more appreciative that my parents weren't fucking crazy. Same. I mean, I grew up in a highly religious Mormon household, and even then, my parents weren't half as crazy as some of the folks in here. I wasn't allowed to do the laundry, 'cause I was dirty. I got to college and I had no idea how to wash my own clothes. I got to middle school and my mom basically said, I'm sick of this, do it yourself, and looking back, I wouldn't want to deal with a 12-year-old boy's laundry either. My mom had me believing the Great Pumpkin existed and I could only pick 10 candies and the rest had to be given to the Great Pumpkin. In reality, the Great Pumpkin was my dad's cubicle. We walked after every dinner. About a 20-minute walk. Actually a nice habit and get if family time. Sucked when the weather sucked. I wasn't allowed to be friends with my younger brother's friends, like I was going to steal them. I wish my mum and aunt had this rule. My cousin, who is 2 years older, often stole my friends. This wasn't a forever rule, but my dad is super anal about cleanliness and especially with a microwave. I always made sure to clean up after myself and the kitchen, but once when I was 17 I got banned from using the microwave for the rest of the day because I tried to heat up mac and cheese without laying a paper towel on top to prevent splatters. Mind you, it didn't splatter at all. But because it could have, I got sent to my room and couldn't touch the microwave. If you burp or fart you must then say shut up to yourself. Your butt is indeed a pretty fucking dada rule. I wasn't allowed to make noise. If I spoke above mumble I was being surly. If I was playing it could not be audible outside of my shut bedroom door. If I was cleaning, which I usually was, then I couldn't make noise while doing it. The consequences varied, usually being screamed at, having something thrown just past my head, or having something I valued taken away. My brother did not have the same restrictions. He's always been an avid musician. Played video games at full volume, cracked jokes and was generally encouraged to speak up. The only time he had the same rules was when our mother was on the phone, which was pretty often. I don't resent him for being treated better and he frequently advocated for me. Now I have some interesting quirks. I can wash dishes in complete silence. I still leave drawers and cabinet doors slightly ajar. I sneak up on people at work by accident. If people are watching TV with me I have to remember to turn up the volume for them. There are days when I can't handle the sound of turning on the shower or running the vacuum cleaner. I have a decimeter app on my phone and frequently check to see how much noise I'm making. I even sneeze silently. But I blast the radio in my car and through my headphones. Yes, I'm in therapy. Edit. Wow. Thank you all for all the gilding and thoughtful responses. I'm glad some of you found humor in my story. It's okay to laugh at the absurdity of it. A few things to add based on those responses. You can't vacuum silently, but you can get on your hands and knees with a large scrub brush and brush the debris out of carpet. The answer below as to how to wash dishes silently is accurate based on my experience. Yes, I have been to the Reset Bin Narcissist sub. It is helpful at times, but I am pretty far along in the healing process now. People there are still coming to terms with things I dealt with 10 years ago. Yes, I'm a woman. That was a factor, for sure. I was also unwanted. My mother had already decided to divorce my father when she got pregnant with me. She has implied she wasn't a willing participant in that process, which I actually believe. Also, my brother didn't have it easy. His experiences were just different but not necessarily better. My father was terrible but mostly absent. He died badly a few years ago. I didn't go to the funeral. I don't speak to my mother unless absolutely necessary. Abuse doesn't end when you turn 18. It turned into financial abuse and she was also abusive to my child until I cut contact. My mother had a horrific childhood and by all accounts our experience was an improvement on that. I do think she did the best she could with the information she had. I don't wish her any harm. I had a stepdad for a while. He was clueless, somewhat of an asshole, and also being abused by her. He still taught me how to function and created some stability. There were other adults who tried to help with varying levels of success. CPS was involved at one point but she outsmarted them. Those limited interactions with adults who clearly cared had healthy boundaries, and treated me appropriately for my age made all the difference. So if you're witnessing something similar and can't act directly to correct the situation, do that. You are actually helping. We were told to bite hands and arms at the dinner table if the person reached past or over your plate for something instead of asking for it to be passed to them. But, get your elbows off the table. We couldn't eat ice cream 2 days in a row. My dad's reasoning for it makes sense. There may be a risk of heart disease in the family, so limiting ice cream means limiting intake of saturated fat. However, the executing of the rule is questionable. Why 2 days? Why be so rigid and inflexible? Does having this rule mean the kids look forward to their ice cream days, overall increasing intake? I'm the youngest and we're all adults now. The rule came up in discussion and my brother came up with a hypothetical. What if I eat it 2 days in a row, but then I don't eat it again for the next 3 days? And my dad admitted that would have been a reasonable exception, but he would not have allowed it back then. I still follow the rule. It's not like I eat ice cream every other day like clockwork, it's a rare treat. I just still avoid 2 days in a row, but I sometimes make my brother's exception. Another anecdote: my sophomore year of college, a frozen yogurt station was installed in the dining hall. I texted my dad to ask if the rule applies to frozen yogurt. It does. Parents had a plaque of the Alcatraz prison regulations above the pantry. You are entitled to food, clothing, shelter and medical attention. Anything else that you get is a privilege. Okay, love you too, Mom. Edit. So this wasn't used as a joke. They stood by these rules and actually ignored the medical attention most of the time. So I almost died multiple times in my life for not receiving medical care. It's kind of shitty those of you commenting about how you want a plaque like that for your own kids. Really hope you guys are joking and don't intend on actually acting like this as a parent. Edit again. Guys, I'm not talking about using these ideas to teach a valuable lesson. I get it. Kids feel entitled to more shit than they need. Just love your kids and don't literally neglect them is all I'm saying. This was my parents' stance on things too, except needing things that cost money was a good way to get punished. Still have pretty much no idea how to actually shop for clothes or go to the doctor. We weren't allowed to play pretend when I was younger. My parents thought it would prevent us from seeing reality or something like that. We had an egg timer in the bathroom and couldn't take more than 5-minute showers. We were in no way financially unstable nor environmentally cautious in any other way. In order to stay home from school, we either had to have a fever over 100, or my mom had to see us throw up more than once. Not allowed to whistle at night. Was told that you'd hear one back from someone who isn't there. Clarification: my mother is Native American, so we have a few superstitions like that. House isn't haunted. Parents aren't schizo. Just mild superstition. Holy shit, this blew up. I was not expecting that. Also interesting to hear whistling superstitions from other parts of the world. Back home, a village in Alaska, the elders always told us kids not to whistle at the northern lights or they would take you, and to never answer your name if it was called on the tundra or you'd be taken. My mom didn't let me watch Wishbone because in one episode she walked in and they were burning a witch and she didn't want me to watch a terribly violent and disgusting show while I was so young. I was only allowed 1 box of sugar cereal a year. The first week of January was always very exciting. Edited to at, I usually picked Lucky Charms, sometimes Frosted Flakes. Due to this once-a-year rule I have never tried many sugar cereals and have no desire to. Now that I am a parent, I let my kids have sugar cereal often. My dad used to literally get upset if me or my brothers drank while we were eating. He would always tell us that drinks are for after the meal. He stopped telling us anything after a while. Every last Friday of the month my mom would make us stay home from school and play video games as a family. Didn't matter what was happening at school, test or whatnot, it was a rule and a tradition. She'd watch us play Sega or Nintendo games and make us these extravagant lunches. As a kid I always thought it was awesome and I look back on those days fondly. Unfortunately it was for a darker reason. My dad was overly strict and pretty abusive. Although I love the man unconditionally, he was also abusive to my mom and very controlling. Thing was, he had a good job and was off on the weekends, and us kids obviously were at school all week. My mom made the rule so that she could spend a day with us, having fun and being together, without my dad there instigating a massive fight or beating us kids because there were vacuum lines on the carpet. It was the only real time my mom got to spend alone without my dad there, aside from summer vacations. I didn't realize it at the time, but to this day I don't think we missed a single last Friday. She would have never allowed it. When I had someone over, I couldn't keep the door closed, but the weird part was when a girl was over, I could keep it closed. A boy had to be open. Watching the Three Stooges was banned. My mom said the reason was it glorified violence. I just think she didn't find it funny. I know a girl whose family didn't allow them to say poop or fart. She's nearly 30 and can't bring herself to say them still. Edit. More info. She blushes deeply if she has to imply the words. She was trying to describe an issue her cat was having with digestion once, and she was nearly hysterical trying to describe it. My dad insisted I take up a musical instrument when they were first offered in 4th grade, but then demanded that I never practice at home until I got better because he didn't want to hear bad music. My mother was very abusive. She was also an idiot who never followed through with anything in life except for her promises of beating my ass. If I ever find out you were fighting in school, I will beat your ass. If I ever find out you were letting anybody pick on you, I will beat your ass. If I ever find out you're fucking around in school, I will beat your ass. I don't give a shit how sick you are. You're going to school or I will beat your ass. If any of your teachers ever call my house, I will beat your ass. Ron Howard voice. So, realizing he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't, he found the consistency that teenagers so secretly desire in the fact that his mother would surely beat his ass. If I ever find out you were fighting in school, I will beat your ass. If I ever find out you were letting anybody pick on you, I will beat your ass. Wait, so if I am supposed to not let somebody pick on me, what am I supposed to do? No fighting. So my brothers and I made a rule of quiet fighting. We would fight each other with one hand covering our mouths. No skulls on anything we owned. Our Christian beliefs put by our parents said that skulls are evil. And for a lot of people too, we were not allowed to do anything Halloween. My mom growing up was not allowed to say the word fart but instead had to say poofer. No clue why my grandma made that rule, but I think it's hilarious. We had to stop and smile as broadly and joyfully as possible when my dad uttered the word equations. A lot of things were banned in the very southern Christian house I grew up in. I'll list just a few things that we weren't allowed to do. Play Pokemon or collect the cards. Watch any kind of musical or movie with too much secular music. Wear shorts or tank tops. And we weren't allowed in the kitchen when my mom was cooking. She honestly hates having us around while cooking or baking, and she's still like this. I wasn't allowed to say y'all. I was living in Arkansas, but my mom didn't want us to sound southern. I wasn't born in Arkansas and neither were my parents. Dart. She also thought it would make my sister and I sound uneducated. We ended up living in Arkansas for 9 years and Texas for 5 years. My sister and I don't have a southern accent, but we do say y'all quite often now. In order to go anywhere overnight, rather it be a sleepover or camping trip, I had to have my mother's name, address, and phone number written in permanent marker on my back, in case my body showed up somewhere. Can't hang panties on the same line that the males in the house put their clothes on. Female clothes on this line, male clothes on that line. No lights. My mother suffered from migraines and couldn't tolerate light, so the house was shrouded in darkness. We used candles and kerosene lanterns. Now I literally turn on every single light in my house every morning just to get my day started. I still crave light after all this time. It hurts me not to have it. I'm the exact opposite. My mom would turn all of the lights on in the morning, and the moment she left, I would turn them all off because it was too bright for me. I can't stand artificial light at all, just natural light and darkness. 1. My parents listened to a guy in Sunday school who told them about the evils of D&D and all RPGs. They came home and made us get rid of Might and Magic, Secret of the Inner Sanctum. They actually bought us another game to replace it. This was around 1988 and the guy actually told them about LARPing destroying his life. 2. We had to answer the phone with our last name followed by residence. Pretend our last name was Mathalath. We picked up the phone Mathalath residence. I had to answer phone do residence. Jane speaking. It was proper phone etiquette at the time. Funny part was that I lived with my dad, just the two of us. Who would confuse a 10-year-old girl's voice for that of her father? When I hit high school and got my first GF, my dad made a rule where if I wanted to get laid just tell him and he'd leave the house for as long as I needed, but only if I agreed to do the same when his GF came over. No TV. This was the 80s. We finally got a terrible, tiny black and white TV when I was maybe 12ish. The only thing I could watch without ruthless mocking was the original Star Trek if there happened to be reruns. I can recite them by heart to this day. I was so pop culture illiterate, it was unreal. I had no idea what Saturday Night Live was, or MTV or anything. In retrospect I think my dad just hated everything and especially loud noises. I did learn to love reading though. Oh, and also dinner was between 10 PM to midnight. I was a night owl also, from babyhood, so this wasn't the worst thing for me, but I do remember being woken up to come eat many times. My father just preferred it that way, so that's how it was. Cursing Thursdays. You could say whatever you wanted with no consequences. Had someone stay over who knew the rule, opened my parents' bedroom and said goodnight motherfuckers. I had a similar rule growing up, except it was once a year instead of once a week, on our birthdays. The problem is that I was super sheltered and homeschooled, so my swears consisted of butt, fart, stupid, and Yeah, we weren't allowed to say any of those words normally, but on our birthdays, anything goes. Hey you stupid fart butt, get me some cake. I wasn't allowed to eat my mom's cheese and crackers. So when I went to my wife's house, her mom had some and my sister-in-laws and wife were eating them. They offered me some and I told them I'm not allowed. They were so confused. My phone conversations had to be 5 minutes or less. My old school father firmly believed that the phone was intended for business purposes, not social. This was a rule in place until his death when I was 15. Mind you, I grew up in the 80s, but my dad was born in the 1930s. Sure, it's been said, but words that were slang for other swear words, i.e. frick, freaking, sucks, had a zero tolerance policy. I remember having an argument when I was like 13 with a friend, stressing to him he was actually swearing without knowing it and God wasn't going to be happy. And X200B, bonus story, I cried when I first penetrated my SOBC. Not only had I damned myself but then I started violently vomiting. Catholicism was a bitch, man. Edit, I knew I was going to get some shit for that second story. We're still together after 6 years, we laugh about it now. It is a real funny story that I don't tell people. I figured y'all would like it though. If you're thinking of making fun of me, I encourage it, but remember I really didn't believe it at the time. It's embarrassing in hindsight how scared the church made me feel. Last edit. Thanks for the support guys. It's a huge relief. OFC, I feel so shameful and dumb about it. But that's what the church did to you. After reading these, I feel like my parents' rule of, just don't make us grandparents on the lighter side of things. Was not allowed to watch Scooby-Doo or Harry Potter, and all my books had to be approved by mom till I was 15. This is weird, but mom did drugs. So, every day after school, my siblings and I had to forage the surrounding woods. Grew up in rural WA state, for small rocks for a DIY rock driveway. We each had our own bucket. We weren't allowed inside the house until we each filled said bucket. Honestly, I didn't think it was weird at the time. It was kind of fun, but in hindsight, that was fucked. We couldn't swim for more than an hour. Chlorine would make us go sterile. There was a living room that you could never go in with nice furniture that was only to be used for a super special guest. I'm serious. Like the president. Anyone remember K-Lau? When I was little we were allowed to read the books or watch the TV show, but under no circumstances were we to do both. If we wanted any respect in our house we had to invite my mom to a formal match and beat the shit out of her. Nobody had the balls to do it, and to this day my mom has not been challenged once. My mom won't let me wear anything camo. I asked her why and she said it was too aggressive. She also won't let me wear anything with even a slight stain on it, because she said it made me look homeless. No singing at the dinner table was our big one. My sister and I would never stop singing. We thought that was a rule everyone had at their house until pretty late in our childhoods. Why was everyone trying to sing at the dinner table? This is such a common one, haha. My dad was a periodontist. He had me lay on the bathroom counter every night while he did a dental exam and brushed my teeth for me, until I was 12, and any friends who stayed over had to be subjected to the same treatment. Full-on dental inspections every night. Got a day though, I'm 30 and have never had a single dental problem. We weren't allowed to have face cards in the house cause you know, Satan. When I lived with my mom, my stepfather was the man of the house, meaning he made up every rule and even made on-the-spot rules to counter my ADHD and Asperger's. Dinner rules were a pain in my ass. There was one rule where I could only get up with my plate if I was standing first. Another horrendous rule was I couldn't mix culture food groups even though every other night he would mix cholula with ramen. Lifestyle rules. I couldn't play video games after 8 p.m. This is where all my free time was, and it was ruined since I still despise commercial broadcasting. Another rule that was in place by my grandma, a very power-hungry witch with the sole intention of disproving my Asperger's, was that I could only play 1 hour of video games after she went through my phone and found a text of my friend calling me a cunt a whole day after a conversation about my grandma. It still saddens me that my mom stuck with him for as long as she did. In the last 6 months of me living with my mom, he turned into an alcoholic, constantly drinking whiskey, liquor and beer into one. My mother's divorce with him turned her into an alcoholic too. She thought it was her fault that he cheated on her. Couldn't go outside until I was 18. Exactly 18. This included walking to school, or even around the block. Because there are scory bad men out there who will rape me, or abduct me, or kidnap me, or murder me, or... And I almost had you too. I was right outside the whole time. But everyone knows the rules: no kidnapping after 18. There were a few movies that we were only allowed to watch once per year. We watched them at Christmas time, and would get in trouble if we watched them at any other time of year. They weren't even Christmas movies. Example, one was The Wizard of Oz. My dad just didn't want us to get sick of them, so they had to stay special. We weren't allowed to watch sex scenes even if it didn't contain nudity but was still present while it was taking place. We just had to cover our eyes and had to be told when it was okay to look again, so we still heard the moaning and the banging but didn't know what was really going on. I am late to this, but I am the only girl in my entire generation. I have no girl cousins and 3 brothers. I was not allowed to do anything with my dad and brothers. I wasn't allowed on vacation. I wasn't allowed to go to the store. My mom was welcome on vacation but I was not. During the summer months I was sent to live with relatives and my family would travel without me. My dad would constantly remind me of how he never wanted a girl. I remember when I was 9-10 I wanted more than anything to be a boy, to be accepted. I am good now. I have issues but I know it and it's okay. I also love being female and I know this is not an acceptable way to be treated. I don't talk to any of my family except my mom and I have a great life. I would say my biggest issue is seeing a dad be a good and real dad to his little girl. I tear up instantly. I am so thankful to that man for just being a good dad. Girls need love from their dad. This thread was way less hilarious and kooky rules and a lot more just people being fucked up to their kids than I was expecting. We were forced to wear socks during the winter. My feet were always too hot and sweaty. My parents refuted that because their feet got cold. If we didn't wear socks we had to stand outside in freezing cold without socks on. One year I had managed to have both minor frostbite and athlete's foot at the same time. My parents were pieces of abusive shit and I hate them. Hatred can be a positive emotion if it gives you realization to rise up from your situation and become the exact opposite of those who created you. My mom had very specific rules for how and when we were allowed to use all of the towels in the house. God help you if you dried off the counter with a hand towel or a dish towel instead of a wash towel. My mom saw some TV psychologists talk about limiting children's screen time, so for about 6 months I was not allowed to use a TV, Game Boy, computer, or anything electronic between the hours of 3 and 8 on weekdays. I was about 11 or 12 at the time. She gave up on this eventually because this made me have to stay up until 1 AM to get my work done because I needed the computer to work. You aren't allowed to have problems. Any issues you may be facing are not real because I am a child and they are the parents and I never got any help when I was a kid and now I want to kill myself at least twice a day. Thanks mom. Thanks dad. I wasn't allowed to use primary weapons in Call of Duty 2 during family game sessions. Let's just say I basically became the John Wick of Lugers and Webleys. I didn't have any strange rules, but I had a friend who was not allowed in his family's living room. If I remember right, it stemmed from him breaking something in there at some point years before I knew him. Even if no one was home he would not even step 1 foot in there. I would walk in there and laugh at him that he could not come in. Not allowed to say I forgot. Usually would end up with you in deeper crap than before. They believed that everyone in the family should have the memory of an elephant. This sucks for me, because I am pretty forgetful. I couldn't use a fork at my aunt's house. I still can't happy cake day BTW. No TV during dinner ever, always had to sit at the table and listen to reggae. Was reggae last of the rule, or just the music of choice? Like would you have gotten in trouble if you suggested like Vivaldi or Van Halen instead? We couldn't have any breakfast cereal above 9 grams of sugar per serving. Sugar couldn't be in the first 3 ingredients for us. Kind of agree. But my husband thinks I'm deprived because I've never had Golden Grahams. Do whatever you want, but don't annoy us, and realize that you are responsible for the outcomes of your actions. When I was 8 years old and went to visit my dad and stepmother during summer break, I had to be out of the house before my stepmother woke up and was not allowed to return until after lunch on the days my dad worked. I would instead leave all day, so be gone from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock when I knew my dad would be home. I had a friend who had a really cool mother. She was super relaxed about just about everything. The type of mother who allows her kids to have drinking parties at their house and supervises to make sure they stay safe. She was turbo anti-porn, though, and would actually, seemingly somewhat jokingly, even tell his friends that came over that they shouldn't be watching any porn. It turned out she had been a porn actress for some time and did something ridiculous like 200 movies, so she just didn't want her son or his friends ending up tugging it to her. Weird world we live in. We were not allowed to use the bathroom when we had dinner at Benahana. Either go to the bathroom at home or use the nearby bookstore bathroom. Wasn't allowed to masturbate anywhere but my room or the bathroom. The rule itself isn't weird. The fact that it needed to be a rule was weird. When my 6-year-old self discovered prolonged wee touching, I didn't know it was something that should be done in private. My dad had to cut me off mid-rub while I was playing my leapfrog in the kitchen. Edit, bathroom. Could drink at a very young age, just had to have my own money to pay for it and have enough to buy whoever was buying it for me what they want also, and as an add-on I could drink but could not smoke weed. So very weird rules. Also PS, happy cake day. I moved in with my dad when I was 13. My mom was a bad drunk and alcoholism runs on that side of the family, so my dad said no drinking. But it was okay to smoke pot as long as I did it in the house. This was the late 80s and it was pretty rare to find anything but Mexican ditch weed, but my dad had a good connect and I'd sneak his butt whenever I got the chance. I talked to him about this a few years ago and he said, I thought it was strange that after you moved out I went from smoking a 1 stroke for a week to 1 stroke for a month. That I could only eat beef that is well done because I might get diseases from rare beef. That's actually recommended by most pediatricians, even still today. Kids are more susceptible to foodborne illness. No video game consoles ever. I've only owned one video game console in my entire life. It was a Nintendo DS. Might have been a 2DS, I don't remember. My mom purchased it because my therapist thought it would be a good idea to have something I cared about that she could take away as a consequence. Yes, you heard that right. The only video game console I ever owned was purchased with the purpose of being taken away. We slowly got more and more into video games, mostly Minecraft after a family friend got it for us, but we never ever played them on anything other than a PC. Mom and Dad would Lysol the ever-living hell out of the hotel room when we checked in, you know, germs and stuff. Can't turn on the interior lights when someone is driving, or when nobody is driving, or ever. Had to finish homework before I could go play. We are talking during summer break in middle school. My dad had, and still has, a rule where no one was allowed to drink soda pops ever for any reason. Every time I had friends over, the first thing he asked them was when the last time they had a soda pop, and then he'd force them to burp it all out, and even then sometimes he told them they had to go home. Apparently, carbonation is an affront to all things good and pure about drinking. I don't drink soda pops because I just want to avoid a lecture from the guy. He asks all the time too, every time I see him. You drink a soda pop? And I gotta say no or he'll be pissed off at me for like a month. He told my wife he wouldn't attend the wedding if there were going to be soda pops, and then told her again he wouldn't touch our baby if she drank any soda pop at all while she was pregnant. Honestly, I drank a soda pop in college and I kinda see where he's coming from. Drinks shouldn't be crunchy. His vehement hate seems like a little much though. He can't even go to a restaurant because they have soda pops on the menu. Last time we went out to eat, he yelled at the server for even offering and then stormed out, but not before knocking over the soda pops off some family the table over. I wonder if he's ever even tried a soda op. I'm sure he'd rather die than try. That sounds like a phobia or a mental illness. Does he have any other strange beliefs? Have you ever asked him why? Tanzania. There's a huge baobab tree in our neighborhood. These things are hundreds of years old and the one in our neighborhood was wider than our garage. Kids loved playing around the tree because it didn't let anything else but grass grow there, so it was a natural park. But I, and a lot of other Muslim family kids, were never allowed to climb or be under it past sunset. This is due to an ancient African Muslim legend that jinn and other evil beings lived in large old trees. So if we were under or in it past sunset, they'd take over our bodies. Telling this story reminds me of when I was a kid and the cool kids dared me to climb it and I ended up killing my family that night. Fun times. My dad was a complete psycho and we had silent dinners every night when he got home from work. No one was allowed to speak at the dinner table while we were eating. Period. If me or my brothers were caught whispering, talking, making any noise, we were fucked. Our punishment was to finish our dinner standing up in the neutral zone, which was a 3x3 feet square made of painter's tape on the floor of the kitchen in the other room. We weren't allowed to use our hands to eat anything while we were standing up holding out plates, so eating any food that required a fork and knife was a pain in the ass. If we got caught and went to the neutral zone, we weren't allowed to have dessert or watch any TV until it was time to go to bed.